Hey, Gloff, Daniel, Sally, Shane. Good to have you here. I asked Nolan for some suggestions if he knew of any good poems to share, and he sent me a couple amazing ones by a poet I hadn't read before, David Whyte. Um, Before I read one of the ones Nolan suggested, I'm going to read a couple that I came across going through his work of my own. I was really impressed by this poet. So we're going to start with one called Faith by David Whyte. I want to write about faith, about the way the moon rises over cold snow night after night. Faithful, even as it fades from fullness, slowly becoming that last curving and impossible sliver of light before the final darkness. But I have no faith myself. I refuse it, even the smallest entry. Let this, then, my small poem, like a new moon, slender and barely open, be the first prayer that opens me to faith. And also by David Whyte, sometimes. Sometimes, if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories who could cross a shimmering bed of dry leaves without a sound, you come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening requests, conceived out of nowhere, but in this place, beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you. Questions that have no right to go away. Hey, Nolan, you're here. Hey, Witcher, welcome. Shane says it's echoing. I can barely run my computer, so I wouldn't know how to fix it. You say, okay, it's making it halfway psychedelic, actually. So is anyone else getting an echo, or is that just Shane? Hey, Dust, how you doing tonight? Well, I know the sound's always weird on my solo live streams. Is it any worse than normal? All right, Beth says sounds good. Okay, Nolan says it's whistling like normal. So maybe someone just slipped you psychedelic, Shane. Did you leave your drink unattended? All right, now I'm going to read one of the ones that Nolan suggested. And then I'll check the chat for any questions or interesting comments to read. So this one's called Coleman's Bed. Make a nesting now, a place to which the birds can come. Think of Kevin's powerful palm holding the blackbird's egg, and be the one looking out from this place who warms interior forms into light. Feel the way the cliff at your back Give shelter to your outward view, and then bring in from those horizons all discordant elements that seek a home. Be taught now, among the trees and rocks, how the discarded is woven into shelter. Learn the way things hidden and unspoken slowly proclaim their voice in the world. Find that far inward symmetry to all outward appearances. Apprentice yourself to yourself. Begin to welcome back all you sent away. Be a new enunciation. Make yourself a door through which to be hospitable, even to the stranger in you. See with every turning day how each season makes a child of you again, wants you to become a seeker after rainfall and bird song. Watch now how it weathers you to a testing in the tried and true, admonishes you with each falling leaf to be courageous, to be something that has come through, to be the last thing you want to see before you leave the world. Above all, be alone with it all, a hiving off, corner of silence, amidst the noise, refuse to talk, even to yourself, and stay in this place until the current of the story is strong enough to float you out. Ghost then, to where others in this place have come before, under the hazel by the ruined chapel, below the cave where Coleman slept. Become the source that makes the river flow, and then the sea beyond. Live in this place as you were meant to, and then, surprised by your abilities, become the ancestor of it all, the quiet, robust, and blessed saint that your future happiness will always remember. Witcher has a theory that the whistling you are hearing are future computer overlords communicating before their eyes. And no, those weren't poems Nolan wrote. He's They're by David Whyte. Everything I read, and I have a couple more. They were just suggested to me by Nolan. But excellent choice. His shit is really deep. Anyone have anything to talk to, or you just want to go on to the next poem? All right, well, I have nothing in mind. And Witcher's enjoying the poetry. All right, so let's see which one's in the next tab. All right, this is another one that one of the ones Nolan sent to me. The Faces of Braga. In monastery darkness, by the light of one flashlight, the old shrine room waits in silence, while above the door we see the terrible figure, fierce eyes demanding, "Will you step through?" And the old monk leads us, bent back, nudging blackness, prayer beads in the hand that beckons. We light the butter lamps and bow, eyes blinking in the pungent smoke, look up without a word, see faces in meditation, 100 faces carved above, eye lines wrinkled in the handheld light. Such love in solid wood, taken from the hillside and carved in silence. They have the vibrant stillness of those who made them. Engulfed by the past, they have been neglected. But through smoke and darkness, they are like the flowers we have seen growing through the dust of eroded slopes, their slowly opening faces turned towards the mountains. Carved in devotion, their eyes have softened through the age, and their mouths carved through delight of the carver's hand. If only our own faces would allow the invisible carver's hand to bring to bring the deep grain of love to the surface. If only we knew, as the carver knew, how the flaws in the wood led to his searching chisel to the very core, we would smile too, and not need faces immobilized by fear and the weight of things undone. When we fight with our failing, we ignore the entrance to the shrine itself and wrestle with the guardian, fierce figure on the side of good. And as we fight, our eyes are hooded with grief and our mouths are dry with pain. If only we could give ourselves to the blows of the carver's hands, the lines in our faces would be the trace lines of rivers, feeding the sea where voices meet, praising the features of the mountain and the cloud and the sky. Our faces would fall away until we, growing younger towards death, every day would gather all our flaws in celebration to merge with them perfectly, impossibly, wedded to our essence, full of silence from the carver's hands. Hey, Shim Sham. Thanks for showing up. Happy full moon to you as well, and to everyone else here. And Nolan says he was introduced to David Whyte through this video series of him discussing art, and he helpfully provided everyone a link because he found it quite insightful. Shane had the same problem as you tonight, Martin. That's a very common problem for some reason. So how is everyone? Dust said he was in a thoughtful mood. Nolan's in a helpful mood, suggesting good poetry for us all. Dust says, been thinking about faith and knowledge, how they're closely linked. Want to share any more on that? What you think about the link between faith and knowledge? I was discussing that with someone recently. But maybe before I share my thoughts, I'll see if you want to say anything else about it. Martin's at about a medium. Good, better than where I'm spending most of my time. Witcher says, fitting that a lunatic's howl would not be able to do anything but echo. Yes, Nerdy Bird, the carver's hand is beautiful. Martin says, lucky to be alive and to have food and shelter. Yeah, it's good to practice gratitude. wood in the stove, keeping the house warm. Got electricity, plumbing, food, cigarettes. Still feel half dead with depression, but there's plenty to be grateful for still. And Dust said, in order for something to read, you require a reader. What me and someone else were talking recently, and they were really digging into my base axioms and like what I think of faith. Fuck, I don't feel the words clicking in my mind to express it the way I did when talking with them. My point was that when it comes down to the fundamental on faith in God, regardless of what God is, with God being whatever the fuck is actually there. So whether for you, God is more like the embodiment of the highest ideal, the sum total of all reality, or whatever other way you believe in God. That idea about whether God is good or not. That for me, I find there's so much to reality that the hell we can experience here is so intense as well as the heaven. There's so much to reality that if you're using logic or reason or knowledge, then depending on the experiences you've had, the emotional state you're in, and the information you're exposed to, it seems to me that you could logically argue either way, that God is good or evil, that existence itself is good or evil. I find there's a state of mind where you're very aware of all the suffering and even the blessings in the world, even the good shit, can seem like it's only there to empower evil. That every person who has a beautiful child that grows up, happy and healthy and has a loving family is just there to torment the people who lose their children. That every blessing is just there so it can be taken away. That joy is there just to create more pain and contrast, and that the suffering outweighs the good. You can also see it all from a perspective from which all things work to God's will, like towards the good, where sin is there because the forgiveness and the transcendent of sins is more good than the sin itself, that all evil is there for more good to grow out of, and that there can't be. So I find with reality being so much more than what we can comprehend, you can find a logical argument for either. And that for me, in the different extreme states I experience, one can be more convincing than the other. When I'm depressed, it's hard for me not to for it to seem like the suffering outweighs the good. But for me, when I realize that you can flip that switch either way, the faith that God is good or the decision that being isn't worth it, that comes down to an act of faith, and that comes down to essentially a choice that you realize it's not based on definite evidence, that it's possible to form a case for either. For me, the awareness of that means that you just have to, or for me, I just had to make that axiomatic decision that even when I get plunged into hell and it doesn't seem true in the moment, I've decided God is good, that existence is meaningful, based not on my feelings, not based on information and knowledge and understanding of how it's so. And I build my understanding on top of it. Whereas the person I was talking to said they continually found themselves trying to find the right knowledge to build their faith on, that they wanted to find facts that they could put their faith on top of. And for me, that just means that any fact that your faith is built on top of, if that fact is questioned, if you get any evidence that it could be incorrect, you'll either filter it out, block it out, deny it. And so you might deny something that's really there, and that may in some way not be something that needs to destroy your faith. Or those are the kinds of things that if some fact forces itself where you can no longer deny it and your faith was built on it, then your faith will crumble. So for me, faith is deeper than knowledge. Faith is about how we interact with what's beyond us. I don't know if that made much sense. Gloff is on a 100-hour work week? Holy fuck. How long do you have to keep that up for? And how do you have any time to be watching this? Shane says he's doing good, working on things, trying to stay right morally. Difficult, but also the most meaningful. Also looking at my faith. Excellent. And Nerdy Bird agrees, Martin, that your gratitude was a great share. All right, anyone have a question or we want another poem? I think I have 3 more that I picked. All right, no one's saying anything at all? Okay, Witcher wants the next poem. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. All right, again by David Whyte, The Winter of Listening. No one but me by the fire, my hands burning red in the palms, while the night wind carries everything away outside. All this petty worry, while the great cloak of the sky grows dark and intense round every living thing. All this trying to know who we are, and all this wanting to know exactly what we must do. What is precious inside us does not care to be known by the mind in ways that diminish its presence. We strive for imperfection. What we strive for, imperfection, is not what turns us into the lit angel we desire. What disturbs, then nourishes, as everything we need. What we hate in ourselves is what we cannot know in ourselves. But what is true to the pattern does not need to be explained. Inside everyone is a great shout of joy, waiting to be born. And here, in the tumult of the night, I hear the walnut above the child's swing swaying, its dark limbs in the wind and the rain, now come to beat against my window. And somewhere in this cold night of wind and stars, the first whispered opening of those hidden and invisible springs that uncoil in the still summer air, each yet to be imagined, rose. I really like the one part that says, "What is precious inside us does not care to be known by the mind in ways that diminish its presence." Welcome, Sigma. Sigma said poem, and Dust said, "Either way, love helps me get through." I have two more that I had picked out. So this one's called Second Sight. Sometimes you need the ocean light and colors you've never seen before, painted through an evening sky. Sometimes you need your God to be a simple invitation, not a telling word of wisdom. Sometimes you need only the first shyness that comes from being shown things far beyond your understanding, so that you can fly and become free by being still and by being still here. And then there are times you want to be brought to ground by touch and touch alone, to know those arms around you, and to make your home in the world just by being wanted, to see eyes looking back at you as eyes should see you at last, seeing you as you always wanted to be seen, seeing you as you yourself had always wanted to see the world. So how you doing tonight, Sigma? Witcher says, "Lit Angel. Just read some interesting imagery today that reminded me of that part of the poem, Ezekiel 8, verse 2. Then I looked and beheld a form that had the appearance of a man. Below what appeared to be his waist was fire, and above his waist, was something like the appearance of brightness, like gleaming." I like that, like gleaming metal. And Martin wants to know how you guys define love. He says, "What is love, guys? How do you guys feel it? When, where, certain place in your body during prayer or meditation?" I'm going to leave that for any of you who feel like sharing your answer. Witcher says that lit angel imagery is from the previous poem. Couldn't find the quote in time before it wrapped up. Martin, for me, I think the word love is too big to explain personally. It's like God, you can describe aspects. Witcher is going to come up with a better answer. All right, while he does that, I'm going to read the last poem I prepared. And I don't know if you can post links or if only wrenches can. But you're a solid member of the community. How do I turn you into a wrench? I don't know how to fucking do that. I don't know how people became wrenches. Does anyone else who is a wrench, can they enable Witcher? Oh, wait. There, I think I gave you a wrench, Witcher. I trust you with the ability to put up links. All right, I'm going to read the last poem. Santiago. The road seen, then not seen. The hillside hiding, then revealing the way you should take. The road dropping away from you as if leaving you to walk on thin air, then catching you, holding you up when you thought you would fall. And the way forward, always in the end, the way that you followed, the way that carried you into your future, that brought you to this place. No matter that it sometimes took your promise from you, no matter that it had to break your heart along the way. The sense of having walked from far inside yourself out into the revelation, to have risked yourself for something that seemed to stand both inside you and far beyond you, that called you back to the only road in the end that you could follow, walking as you did in your rags of love and speaking in the voice that by night became a prayer for safe arrival. So that one day you realized that what you wanted had already happened long ago, and in the dwelling place you had lived in before you began. And that every step along the way, you had carried the heart and the mind and the promise that first set you off and drew you on, and that you were more marvelous in your simple wish to find a way than the gilded roofs of any destination you could reach, as if all along you had thought the end point might be a city with golden towers and cheering crowds, and turning the corner at which you thought was the end of the road, you found just a simple reflection and a clear revelation beneath the face looking back, and beneath it another invitation, all in one glimpse, like a person and a place you had sought forever, like a broad field of freedom that beckoned you beyond, like another life and the road still stretching on. All right, Sigma says, I'm well. Love is my response to all that I can acknowledge is more than before. Glad to hear that you're well. And Witcher posted a link for Richmond Carver's B-page short story, What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. Hi, Adela. Nice to have you here. Adela says, love is bigger than you are. You can invite love, but you cannot dictate how, when, and where love expresses itself. You can choose to surrender to love or not, but in the end, love strikes like. Witcher says, granted, in my world, love is a three-letter word. Nolan says, I think images of the lion and lamb together can be seen as a depiction of love. For me, I find love has a lot to do with seeing the oneness of all. I think it ties into the idea of faith in God. Seeing yourself in the other, seeing God in the other, in all things, to me is a big part of love. And the end of what Adela was saying. So love strikes like lightning, strikes like lightning. Dust says, I've been focusing on trust. I assume you mean focusing on trust in God? Or do you mean you're focusing on working on trust issues with others? Working on being able to trust yourself? Nolan says, coexistence of unity and multiplicity in Pajot's words. I think that image fits with his definition. Working on trusting God and yourself too. How's that going? I'm not going to read your comment, Witcher. I don't want to put that in anyone else's head. Dust said it's not easy, but it's progressed. Well, I'm glad it's progressing. Yeah, I've had a hard time with that as well. Roho, nice to have you here. How you doing tonight? Roho's asking how I'm doing. I'm brutally depressed. This winter's been very, very difficult. But I'm sticking it out. How are you doing? All right, Martin's got another question for everyone. I really don't have anything to say, so this is good. Martin will ask the question, and I'll read out your answers. So, Adela and everyone else, what would you recommend to feel more love in your life besides what's already been said? like trusting. Oh, good night, Nolan. Hope you have wonderful travels to the dreamlands. Thanks for coming. Rojo says, got my new cray meds today. They actually work. Excellent. I don't take meds myself beyond, like I have a prescription for sleeping pills. But other than that, I never had success with any of the psych meds. But I'm wholly supportive of anyone else who uses them and find it works for them. I medicate with tobacco and caffeine and weed. Okay, does anyone have an answer for Martin on how to feel more love in your life besides what's already been said? And Witcher provided another link. It says, this is a great talk about the nearness yet otherness of God. Dust says, I don't think I could operate without the meds. I'm glad you have them then. And Beth makes an excellent point. Acts of service. Especially if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, if you're feeling a lack of connection, having difficulty loving or trusting, feeling love, then doing something for someone else can be very, very helpful. And Rojo says, I've been on the upswing with my roller coaster mania. I know the other shoe's going to fall soon, so I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Well, enjoy it. Just try not to fly any higher than you have to. That brings a heavier crash. Rojo says, I know you were or are getting a divorce, Merc. It's not finalized, but COVID slowed all that shit down. Is dating again on the table? I don't know. It doesn't seem realistic to me. I live out in the fucking middle of nowhere. And it would be a pretty rare individual for whom I would be well suited. Doesn't seem realistic to me. I'm a fucking shut-in out here in the middle of nowhere. Not that I never leave my house. But I don't leave the property here. So dating me would be like dating a tree. You would have to go to where it is. And like I said, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So how about online dating? No, I don't go to any like online. Yeah, I wouldn't do any fucking online dating. Just because I don't think, I'm somewhere out in the middle of nowhere without many people around. You met your boyfriend online in a streamer's chat? Yeah, you can meet people online. But then the only way we would see each other is if they traveled here. How are things going with your boyfriend? Dust says I started playing D&D with my church. Huh, that surprises me. I remember, like, for me growing up, I grew up like Catholic, very active in the church, altar boy, and all that shit. But through the 80s, Christian churches were all talking about how Dungeons and Dragons was evil and would corrupt people. The thought of playing D&D with a church group seems odd to me. Rojo says, "You never know, buddy. I wasn't ever going to be in a relationship, and here I am now, all booed up. Good. I'm glad for you. And no, it's not like I'm opposed to the idea. I'm just not actively pursuing it. What will happen will happen. If the right person found their way to me, I certainly wouldn't turn them away. You're playing D&D with an elder and deacon, no less." Nadella says the best proof of love is trust. I really have nothing coming to mind to say. But we're only 12 minutes away from me doing a full hour. Witcher says rational optimism is my stance. Found this site to explain, and lo and behold, the logo is a phoenix. Interesting. And there's the link for anyone who wants it. Rolo says, "What's tonight's topic?" Tonight's topic initially was the poems of David Whyte, but I already read all the ones I'd selected. And beyond that, I had nothing planned. My brain's very, very worn out from carrying the weight of this depression all winter. Oh, it was difficult just to show up. But I'm doing my best to stick to these full moons. Rojo says, "You seem a little defeated." Yes, I feel completely defeated. I feel broken right down. And I'm operating on very short time horizons. I'm spending my time getting through the day or sometimes getting through the hour. Sort of suicidal feeling is my baseline emotion for the past few weeks. Dust says, I hope spring renews your hope some. Yeah, it might. My mood will change with the spring. Has every other year since going mad. Rojo says, you know, the best part of them low lows is that the upswing is coming soon. Focusing on that does not really have an impact on my mood. At the moment. Feeling better like seems like an illusion from here. Like I'm not agreeing with that thought. It's just the way it feels at the moment. Hi, Kobe Wilson. Welcome. Kobe asks, what made you start your YouTube channel? I fucking didn't. It's this channel has a strange history. Someone else started this channel years ago. Andrew. He's the one who did all the old videos marked legacy videos are left up from when he ran the channel. But that's just a little bit of. He started it based on Peterson's work. He was one of the first channels clipping Peterson, like way back in the day before Peterson completely exploded. And Andrew did like the self-authoring program and talked about doing it. He took down all the private stuff. Eventually, he found he had just talked about himself too much private stuff, and he also sort of overcame some of the things he was working on. He'd made progress. And when he was sure he didn't want to do the channel anymore, instead of just deleting everything and closing it down, he asked me and another guy, Ryan Holsapple, to take the channel over. And when we took it over together, we expanded it more to like helping people sorting themselves out. There's all the history of theirs on the channel. Then last summer, Ryan stepped back from doing this to focus on other things. He had to, because we don't make this channel doesn't make any money. He had to focus on his other business and his studies. He'd overburdened himself, so he stepped back, and now I'm continuing the channel. And because I can barely use a computer, people help me out with some shit. I'm not really sure where the channel's going to go from here. Yeah, I didn't start the channel. I stepped into something else that was already here. Rojo says, then feeling bad is an illusion too. Excellent point rationally. But that doesn't feel true at the moment. And I'm aware that that's just the mood. I don't know how to explain what I was just thinking. And Dust says, I haven't heard much from Andrew. I talked to him recently. He's his new channel is Tarot for Self-Knowledge. And so if you're interested in tarot, subscribe to his channel. Kobe asks, when did you find Jordan? I came across Jordan Peterson. Fuck, I'm bad with dates and times. I came across him well before the Kathy Newman thing. I remember him getting much bigger after the Kathy Newman thing. But I just came across, it was nothing to do with all the political or controversial shit. I'd been looking up things on Carl Jung, and I came across one of Peterson's really old lectures about Carl Jung. And at that point, I was looking up a lot on psychology and magic. And at that point, I was keeping myself far more separate from the world than I am now. I wasn't involved like using social media at all. I used YouTube just like a TV station. I didn't interact in comments or anything. And so when I first found Peterson, I went from, because I was impressed with the one lecture, I checked out his channel and I started going through like the maps of meaning and the introduction to personality. But I avoided for the first 6 months that I was into Peterson. I completely avoided all his interviews and shit because I was trying to keep my mind completely clear of like negativity at that point. I was trying to section off from drama and conflict and do self work. So I intentionally avoided his interviews and anything that mentioned his controversy. I didn't even know what it was for the first few months. But then after having gone through all his old lectures, I just got too curious to hear him in interviews. And so I started listening to his interviews, and he was my gateway into all the IDW shit. So now even though I still live like a fucking hermit, I don't leave the property, I get supplies dropped off. I'm much more connected to the world now. I talk to people online and I keep up more with current events. Like I watch more current podcasts and I'm far more aware of what's going on in the world now. How did you come across Jordan Peterson? Oh, okay. You had already written that. Kobe says that's how I found him as well. Just started getting interested in psychology. Peterson's teachings on Jung have really taught me a lot. Yeah. And I was looking into that because I don't know, it seems like you're new here. I don't know how long, what you know about me. I'm bipolar and like really fucking bipolar. And so that's where my journey into both spirituality and psychology and philosophy all stems from losing my mind in 2006. I got hit by a bus, and yeah, the first 5 years were rough for me. Long 3-year cycles, mania that would just build to complete psychosis, locked up, an insane asylum, then depression. I eventually just moved out into the middle of nowhere, right near my parents, and cut myself off completely from the world. For 2 years, I lived out this middle of nowhere where you couldn't see anyone, and I had no first 2 years out here. I had no phone, no internet, no car. Like I was completely cut off. Just saw my immediate family and spent like 99.9% of that time alone. Since then, I've gradually opened up more. First, it was like I got internet and phone. I started allowing my family to visit me a bit more, like my siblings. Then I started allowing a couple people into my life. Eventually, got married, had kids. Although I'm divorced now, and gradually got more plugged into the world. When I took over this channel with Ryan, I gradually started interacting with more and more people in the community. Witcher says, wait, where was I? Okay, Martin's 34. And Rojo says you need a big ass bear hug and some pats on the back. Witcher says in podcasts during commutes, I went from Tim Ferriss to Eric Weinstein to Sam Harris to Jordan Peterson to here around 2016. Not much interaction until I found Akira the Dawn's music featuring Peterson and Jonathan Pajot when I joined Discord. And Kobe says, sorry to hear that. I assume it's about the tragic tale of my descent into madness and my life falling apart. Thanks for the sentiment, but I work from the everything happening for a reason. I'm willing to carry this burden. And it looks like Witcher, is that, did you put a link to the sorting Discord? Is that what that was? Yep. So I'm Mercury Black on the sorting Discord, and I haven't been lately. Well, I've talked to a couple people, but I am not very active at the moment at all. But once my depression lifts a bit, I may get more active. Uh, when I'm doing all right, I do private sessions and talk to people. So if anyone wants to, or sometimes I'm hoping soon to get back to doing lunatic patrols. We do Zooms where we all get together and fucking hang out and talk. So anyone new, if you join our Discord, you can both message me directly there, but also if when we start doing lunatic patrols again, if you want to join those parties, join the Discord. That's how you'll be able to do that. And Kobe says, my biological mother is bipolar in an institution, so I know firsthand how hard it can be. I never have caught one of your live streams before, but I've watched a lot of videos on Jordan you posted. I really like your content. Thanks. Well, I'm glad you found your way here. Hey, Carlo. Carlo says, good morning from Europe. I hope you're doing well. Lots of us are doing well. I'm low, but I'm handling it. We made it to an hour. Anyone have anything important to say, or should we wrap it up now? Since Carlo just got here. Oh, Carlotta. Sorry about that. Okay, Carlotta. Since you just got here, we won't necessarily wrap up. Do you or anyone else have any questions or anything you want to share with everyone? It's not that I feel the need to immediately disappear. I just have nothing to say. And you're all just making faces in chat now. And so Witcher wants to know how you arrived here, Carlotta. And he makes a good point that we're all glad to see new people. Kobe asks, where did you start with reading on Jung? I've tried to start with the Red Book, but found that one a little dense. I haven't read any. I read a couple papers. I haven't read any of Jung. I don't like reading online, and I've never gotten around to ordering any of his books. Yeah, I intend to eventually, but I've just listened to a bunch of lectures on Jung as opposed to reading him much, just because I've never bought any of his books yet. And Martin has only read his autobiography and recommends it. I would really like to get the Red Book. Okay, and Carlotta's letting us know that I was subscribed to Andrew and kept subscribed. Occasionally I'd watch Mercury too. Very interesting. So you're around from the very old days. And Martin says it's called Memories, Dreams, Reflections. It's an amazing read. Kobe says, do you have any experience with psychedelics? Yeah, before I went crazy, I liked mushrooms a lot. In my 20s, I did a fair amount of mushrooms. It was not enough to get through to me. Like lots of people talk about taking psychedelics, having a religious experience, and that opening their mind to the expansive nature of reality beyond our normal state of awareness. Like when I look back, psychedelics were not enough to get through to me. I did not take them in any way as a form of self-expansion or like I wasn't doing it in the right way at all. I was hanging out with a bunch of punks taking fucking mushrooms and just having fun with it. And the funny thing is I even had the kinds of religious experiences that people find life-changing, where you feel like a connection to God. But I would just, because of the fact that I had taken a drug to experience it, because I had experienced so many strange things on psychedelics, and mushrooms are the only ones like psychedelics I've taken. But I took them quite a few times when I was younger. But for some reason, because I was taking drugs to have and having that experience, I didn't take it seriously at all. It's like when I sobered up or whatever, I would just laugh at the fact that when I was on mushrooms, I thought I could sense God. It just didn't fucking click at all. It just seemed like an effect the drug had. And for me, the real breaking of the fourth wall and having my mind expanded, realizing how little of reality I was aware of, and becoming aware of the greater spiritual reality didn't happen until I went insane. Somehow, the psychotic experiences, as messed up as they were because I hadn't done my shadow work and whatnot yet, those opened my mind to it in a way that the psychedelics never did. When it came through as a part of insanity, I had to take it seriously. Kobe says, I've taken mushrooms and LSD. Mushrooms were a much more difficult trip for me, and I struggle with OCD and some BPD symptoms, so it made those worse short term, but long term, I feel like it's helped. LSD was a much easier trip and better for me. I always stuck to mushrooms because I felt like they were more natural. And I did take them during my first psychotic period, my first manic period. I took mushrooms during it. But since then, I haven't taken mushrooms again. I don't know if I ever will again. Partially, I'm reluctant to alter my body chemistry. Like, there's the drugs, including all category of drugs, like sleep aids, through coffee and everything. The ones I take, I'm like, fuck, it is not like this is easy. But I can manage because my bipolar's severe. So it's been like 2009 was the last time I was locked up. I can handle my cycle now. It's not easy, but I can handle it. I don't want to fuck with it, whether it's trying new psychiatric medicine or trying psychedelics. Right now, I don't want to alter my body chemistry at all. And I find I find the spiritual and magical practices and meditative shit, especially being bipolar, I can achieve some pretty altered states. I either have delusions of the spiritual world or I have fucking psychic phenomenon interaction with the spiritual world without needing to take any psychedelics. Is another reason I don't know if I'll ever take them again, is I can achieve very, very similar states without taking anything. Witcher says, for me, I've had 2 meditative experiences that have been way more otherworldly than college experiences. Sorry I'm not being more talkative. My mind is moving very, very slowly. I am fucking mentally and energetically exhausted. The next moon will be after the spring equinox, I think. Maybe the next full moon I'll be in a better mood and be more talkative. Martin says, I miss God. Yeah, in the winter, God moves quite far away from me at times. Yeah, and so Witcher also, through meditative experience, has found he does not need psychedelics. Kobe says psychedelics really changed weed for me. What do you mean? You mean after taking psychedelics, weed affected you differently? Dust says that I don't have to talk. Moments of silence are good too. A couple other people have told me that recently. That even if I'm not feeling talkative, I should consider streaming more or doing a lunatic patrol, even if I don't feel up to talking. It's been expressed that some people just like sharing a present moment for some reason, and that they don't mind when I'm depressed. I get the idea of being present with someone like when I'm in a better state and I'm projecting a better energy. But I was surprised to get the feedback that that wasn't necessary. Which is perhaps because I do so much work, I don't let the pain turn me bitter or resentful. I don't let it stop me from doing the fucking forgiveness shit and the agapic, like meta meditation. So even when I am fucking depressed and can't feel good, I still have nothing but love and the best wishes for you all. Martin's suggesting maybe we can do a meditation together. Does anybody want to do that? Meditation is such a strange word. It encompasses so many things. Like there can be just mindfulness meditation, the learning to observe what's in you and let it pass. There's meditations, learning like how to focus. There's meditation where you try to empty out and get down to that base awareness that loses the sense, that gains that sense of oneness. But there's also guided meditations, visualizations. There's meditations where you attempt to induce certain states, like meta meditation is the attempt to actively generate that feeling of agapic universal love. You can meditate to connect to somebody, to share energy, to send out energy. I wonder if I would have it in me to do a guided meditation. Or we could all just sit and focus on the group connection, and exchanging love and positive energy. I got to go check the fire and use the washroom. So, write what kind, if you want to do a meditation together or not, and what exactly we're going to do with it. I'll be back in a moment. Or talk amongst yourself, or stop watching, or just sit and watch without interacting, whatever the fuck you want to do. Okay, so people were fine with either a guided meditation or a silent meditation. Also, among variety of meditation, you can do meditation with your eyes open or closed. It's often easier when you're starting to close your eyes. I find also I can do meditation where, like, eyes closed, where you forget your body, or you're moving your astral body, or where you're in a mental body. Um, so I can meditate in a way where it feels like I've left my body, but I can also then bring that back into the body. And it's like I can start meditate, put myself into a place where I only use the astral body to get there, feel disconnected from my body. Then I can establish the scene, sit back in the position I know my body's in, and I can open my eyes and overlap it so that I'm feeling both places. And it's like I see one overlap the other. And then I can actually like open my eyes and move. All right, how about instead of me guiding anything specific, why don't we go silently, go into whatever place we feels appropriate. Pick your happy place or your place of power. Put yourself in a field or temple, wherever it is you can send out whatever love or blessings you want to send out to anyone else doing the meditation with us now, or if anyone actually comes to the end of this watching later. So the idea will be for us to sit whatever special or sacred place we can create in the astral or internal realm, or however you frame it, and from there connect to each other. I'll focus on sending love and healing to anyone watching this, and perhaps specific things to specific people. Hi, Home Alone. Okay, yeah, if you can't accomplish anything with meditation, you can go back to the beginning. I read a bunch of poetry earlier, and we talked a bit about this and that. All right, I'm going to go in now. And anyone else who wants to play along can do so as well. I'm halfway back now. Sort of in between. Good night, Martin. Thanks for coming. God bless and lots of love. It's good to have you here. Everyone else ready to wrap this up? All right. Well, I hope anyone for whom it was good to receive the blessings in that meditation received them. Hope everyone has a great night. Thanks for coming. God bless and lunatic love to all.